Hey there and welcome to Concierge Medicine Radio, your source for actionable advice and real stories of physicians running and growing concierge practices. For more interviews and notes on today's show, please visit conciergemedicineradio.com and enter your email. Now, let's join your host, Taylor Pearson.
Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Concierge Medicine Radio. Thanks for coming back and joining us. I talked in this episode with Bryon of EXL Pharma. They have traditionally done events in the pharmaceutical industry and are starting to work with physicians. But I talked with Bryon mainly about the power of live events and the power of getting to know your peers and networking. And, I hate to use networking sometimes because it kind of feels like a transactional word, but really the benefits of seeing other people doing what it is you want to do and really understanding what that looks like. So we talked a little bit about Bryon's event here. For anyone that hasn't picked up the phone and talked to other people doing this that are interested or haven't been to a live event, I would really encourage you to do that, whether that's Bryon's event, the AAPP, the American Association of Family Physicians also puts on events. And if you want to drop me an email, Taylor@conciergemedicineradio.com, depending on when you listen to this, and I can let you know what events are coming up. So without any further ado, let's get to the interview. Welcome to today's episode of Concierge Medicine Radio. We're here today with Bryon, the CEO of EXL Pharma. We're here in Costa Mesa, California. We just wrapped up the first ever Concierge Medicine and Medical Practice Marketing event. Had some great speakers, some of whom we've already had on the show, Dr. Bordinko, Dr. Tom Agrelius, some of whom are going to be coming on soon. So it's a good way to meet some of those people. But I wanted to have Bryon in here to talk a little bit about EXL Pharma and live events and what they're kind of doing in the concierge medicine space. So Bryon, I guess introduce yourself, give us a little background, and tell us about you and how you got into concierge medicine.
All right, fantastic. Thanks for having me on the show. So a little bit about myself is I'm a conference guy. I've been doing conferences in the healthcare space for about 16 years now. And the reason why I do conference that area is because I just have a passion to drive healthcare forward. So every event that we organize, whether it's for medical doctors, for pharmaceutical executives, has that mission behind all the events. So as an organization, I founded the company with my business partner, Ethan Dankinson, 10 years ago. We have our 10-year anniversary coming up this September.
Congratulations.
And thank you very much. So we both were organizing events at another conference company. The organization that we worked for, we just felt their approach to conferences was one that was more based off of really maximizing revenues on conferences rather than maximizing the outcomes for our customers. So that's really the reason why we had left and started EXL. And so 10 years, it was just the two of us kind of getting things kicked off with that event. And today we have 45 employees working at the company, and we put out about 65 events per year. The majority of the events are pharmaceutical based, so they're really executive level meetings for the directors, the VPs that work at these pharmaceutical organizations in either clinical, R&D, marketing. Most of the events are designed in a way to help them come and be able to learn and benchmark from their competitors as well as leading vendors in the space on how they should be really working within the pharmaceutical industry in a better way to deliver more quality healthcare to patients. So the Concierge event is a new program for us, and it's one that we haven't done. Historically, we've only done events for pharmaceutical executives, so we're really trying to pursue a new model now with doing events directly for medical doctors. So it's sort of a new game for us, and it's one that I'm learning as we go along. I know at the foundation how to organize events, how to research with the market and figure out what the needs are, but the execution of conferences and the way there's just little intricacies that differ between pharmaceutical conferences and those that are designed for medical doctors. But it's been fun so far. We just fresh off of finishing up this event, and I think it was definitely a worthwhile experience just in terms of organizing the event, just really seeing everyone brought together and really the amount of stuff that they were learning at this concierge medicine event and the changes that they're all going to be making to their practices when they head back to their offices on Monday.
So when Bryon says fresh off, he literally means fresh off. We just got done about an hour ago. One thing I liked about the event this weekend that's different from some others I've been to, and I'm here with my dad who's a physician, is it's much more business and marketing focused, which I think is not something physicians are used to. Usually they're going to events for, CME and that kind of stuff, whereas this is much more about the nuts and bolts of running a concierge practice. So I think it's cool that y'all bring that dynamic in, but looking at the other people doing events in this space, what is kind of the unique value that y'all are looking to bring?
It's a great question, because before I started pursuing this event, I really needed to take a look at the landscape and figure out what was out there. And in examining the landscape, that's really what drove my desire to do events in this space, because there pretty much seem to be two types of meetings that existed out there. There are these large therapeutic association meetings that have, in a lot of cases, been going on for years. Those meetings are more trade show type events, and when you look at the educational offerings associated with those programs, they're not very focused, and they're a little bit all over the place. And, with our events, we go pretty niche with our topics, and we just focus on a niche topic for a few days to try and extract every possible thing that we can get out of that in terms of, how this market can learn to do their jobs better, focus on that one area. So the association meetings, I saw that there was definitely the need for someone like us to come in and do. And then I did find a few other meetings out there that were more focused in their topics, whether on concierge, whether on medical practice marketing. However, behind every single one of those meetings was a commercial affiliation with a vendor. So you, in being at our meeting, you heard from a lot of vendors at our programs. However, the organizer of the event, the one that controls all the content, is my organization. It's EXL. We're in the business of conferences. We are unbiased in our approach. We try to bring many perspectives. And when I was researching with this market, they initially wanted to know what I was selling through this conference. And literally, I wasn't selling anything. My business is conferences.
You're selling the conference.
I'm selling the conference. I want you to come. I want you to enjoy this conference, and I want you to come back. That's our business. That's what we do. I'm not selling you a product. I'm not trying to sell anything else to you. A few of the vendors that we had at the show, they definitely will try and sell you some things. But, that helps give us the support so we can do these meetings. But, but those other meetings that I came across, they had material that was educational in nature, but you're getting a pitch at the end of it from this one company. So when they didn't have any of their other competitors there, no other players in there, it was just, one perspective. So we're all about bringing all the perspectives together in one room and really just sharing their perspective, and in a lot of cases even debating, with some of their competitors, or even some of the people who were critical of some of their products or services, or some of the people who are fans of their products or services. It's really a unique approach that's worked well for us in the pharmaceutical space that we're really trying to bring into this market, because I think there's a big need, and I think the results we saw the past day and a half backs that up.
And in fairness to other conferences, there definitely were some pitches this weekend, but I think that's pretty standard. When you go to a conference, obviously vendors are going to be there, and that's a part of it. And I thought the vendors here, I've been to a lot of conferences. I'd say it's generally all fairly high quality, and it was here as well. There were pitches, but the pitches were preceded by a lot of value and well worth it. And I didn't feel like there was a lot of high-pressure sales tactics by any means. What are some of the big trends that I think other vendors are seeing, and obviously you're seeing from your background on concierge? Could you talk a little about maybe the impact of the pharmaceutical industry and insurance, government regulation? I know were some of the topics brought up. How do you think those are going to come into the concierge market?
Well, I think a lot of the doctors in this space are really struggling to get a grasp on what these outside forces are and how they're going to impact what they're trying to do. For a doctor to leave his cushy job, if he's in a cushy position, and go off and start a concierge practice, it's a big risk. And when you're taking a big risk, you want to have a good grasp on some of those outside forces that are really impacting your chance for success. And unfortunately, in the political environment today, it's difficult to do that, because a lot of the things that are going on from government do have a big impact on the insurance companies, a big impact on the pharmaceutical industry. So it's tough to really feel fully comfortable, I think, for these guys. I'm not an expert on everything that's going on politically and how it's impacting not only just the pharmaceutical industry, but the movement towards a concierge medicine type model for a lot of doctors. But I do know that they're vast, and we heard some great perspectives at the meeting the past few days that we're really kind of mapping it out for these folks, and hopefully giving them a little bit more comfort on how they can approach this model and be successful without getting totally freaked out by all the other outside forces that are going on right now.
Yeah, that was one of the things that I liked about this conference, and I just spent a week with my dad and sister kind of talking about the business, and they'd spent a lot of time really thinking about what services they wanted to deliver and how they wanted to relate with their patients, and a lot of these things that are really important, but not necessarily the business fundamentals and also the regulatory environment and what all that looks like. So, and I talked with Dr. Forrest. He was on here a few weeks ago. He mentioned that as well, that the common mistake he sees people make is they try to go it alone.
Yeah.
They don't go out and talk to their peers that are doing this. They don't go to any conferences. They just kind of hang their shingle and, think it'll all work out.
Yeah, that's a tough approach.
It is. And some people make it work, but it is really tough.
Well, yeah, and I think a lot of the things that people probably walked away with, the ones that are about to launch their concierge practices, was just a sense of comfort, just seeing that they weren't the only ones struggling with these issues. So, outside of some of the little tactics or strategies they might have learned the past few days, I think just being around peers who are dealing with the same stresses and challenges that they are as they look to kick off a concierge practice, I think was just, comforting for them.
Yeah, and building those relationships. I know I was talking to my dad when I was with him a couple weeks ago. We got online and we found like 5 people with similar business models. I was like, you got to email and call these guys and like talk to them about what they're doing, because, I'm not an expert on concierge medicine either, but these guys are, and they've been doing it for 5 years. And if you can build relationships like that, that's a huge leverage point.
And everyone seems so open to share their perspective and what they went through, not just at this meeting, but even when I was researching this event, no one had any idea who I really was when I was trying to organize this event. But just, it was nice to see the level of openness that from some of these people who've been fairly successful to just, share with me their thoughts and their ideas on how some of these other smaller guys who are just starting out, how they can follow their lead and benchmark off of them to be successful with their own practices.
I'm a big proponent of live events in general. I've talked about them before on the show. I go to a bunch of events. There's an event in Bangkok I go to every year I fly out for. So tell us about what is different about coming to a live event versus, say, like reading a paper or a study or even just working one-on-one with a consultant. What do you think the value of a live event is?
Validation. Especially with our events, because they're not biased, and we really take a good approach by researching with our potential attendees on what they would want to hear at, and that's really at the core of what we organize with our events. So I think just coming to it and really validating a lot of the things that they've been hearing, and even though we have different opinions at the event and different perspectives, I think people are able to look at across all the presentations and pick out the common themes and the common trends that were consistent and really give them a sense of validation when they walk away with this meeting. So I think for a conference to really be successful, you want to make sure that that's an outcome that folks get from it. And there are principles of conference organizers that lead to that outcome. And, which is why I think EXL brings a unique perspective and, always does our best to organize an event in a way that really does lead to ideal things. In terms of live events, versus the other type of learning vehicles, I think every different piece of content out there, whether a white paper or whether, working with a consultant, I think there's value in all of those items. And I'm not going to say that live events are better than all those. It's different in a lot of ways. There's white papers that I've read that I've learned, a ton about. I've worked with consultants who have really been able to help my company and help it grow the way it is. But, live events are just different because, again, it's the number of different perspectives that you're going to hear from at the event, and it's just the relationship building. And, you can't grow a business unless you are building relationships with people that can help you, learning from others and what they did right and what they did wrong. And I think it's difficult to get that from those other avenues, something that you really can get through a live conference.
And I think, at least in my experience, it's been the emotional aspect of it almost. You walk away, and I hate to use the word solidarity because that's got so much political undertones and stuff, but like a sense of camaraderie, especially I think the point where concierge medicine is right now. It's still very much a fringe movement, It's not mainstream. It's not widely understood by physicians. It's not widely understood by patients just because it hasn't been around that long and it hasn't gotten that much exposure. So coming to these kind of events in any industry, but certainly in one where you wouldn't otherwise have that face-to-face interaction, there's not a lot of concierge physicians in areas where they can go next door and talk to another concierge physician. They've got to come to an event, or they've got to make a personal effort to go out and contact someone else that's in their state or in their area and put that together themselves. Whether it's this event or another event, I definitely do encourage people to get out and get to live events and meet other people in the space.
I would agree, and I think with the concierge where it's at in its infancy right now, it's difficult for even us to identify who the people are that are doing concierge or that are thinking of doing.
Yeah.
So it's a difficult event to organize, but I agree, if we're having trouble and we have years of experience in seeking people out to get them to provide research info to us, to get them to speak at our conferences. So imagine you're just a doctor in an area and trying to find people to reach out to. It's a tough thing to do. Also, I assume there's probably a little bit of paranoia as well. If I'm in a small town and I'm thinking about launching a concierge practice, I might not want to talk to my peers within that same market and talk to them about it because I might tip them off on this is something that they should be considering doing and not maybe take my competitive advantage away.
Well, I think what's kind of cool about this space and this event is, of everyone that I've met, no one has that attitude. Everyone else very much feels like there's lots of space for everyone to come in here. There's plenty of problems in healthcare to be solved, and there's certainly not going to be any shortage of those problems in the next 10 or 20 years.
Agreed. Well, it was interesting to hear the perspective of a lot of people at this conference that they really think that concierge, direct pay practices, there's similarities between the two, but they really think that it's going to solve the healthcare issues in this country. They think by really combating what's going on with policy, what's going on with the insurance companies, that this is the model that works really well, and they're confident that the outcomes of a concierge doctor service to a patient is going to completely overshadow what the standard of care is right now in America for most people. So, when doing this event, I knew we were doing something good. I knew we were trying to reach an audience that needed to learn and benchmark off each other, but I didn't realize the potential impact that this could have if this movement does take off in the United States.
Yeah, I think they're confident because they've seen it happen. And it's one thing to intellectually understand something, and it's an entirely different thing to kind of see it and emotionally feel it and know what it's like. So at the events I've been to, when you get the speakers in here that have gone through this and they've launched their practice and they're doing it successfully now, certainly the tactics and how they've done it and the strategy is valuable, but also just you can hear it in their voice and in the way they speak and the kind of entire presentation that, you can do this too, and here's how, and here's the difference it's made in my life, and here's the difference it's made in my patients' lives, and here's the difference I think we can make as physicians, as healthcare professionals in the United States as a whole. And that's, you can kind of hear the excitement in my voice.
No, it's pretty cool.
That's what gets me jacked up about it.
It's pretty cool stuff. It really is.
Tell us future plans for this event. If people want to find out more about you, the next event, what's the best way to do that?
So, of course, when the conference ended, a lot of people came up to me and were asking me about the next event, and I told them I wasn't going to start thinking about that until Monday.
Okay.
But
I'm putting you on the spot today.
I'm putting on the spot, so I can talk a little bit about it. So I know that there will be another event. We do not really know when that's going to be, and what we're trying to figure out as well, and my thought going into this meeting was that it had regional potential. So we're in California with this event. The majority of our attendees were from California. We got a few from other places as well. But I feel that if we can roll these events out in other markets, I think that might be something that we're willing to try to do within the next year. And then maybe we have those smaller events that happen regionally, and then maybe have the one national meeting. So, there's a lot of people who helped me out with this conference and getting it off the ground, and we're all going to have a debrief call next week, just kind of really take all the feedback from everything that each of us heard from the attendees and figure out what to do with this. So there's a few different avenues, but the good news is that everyone left wanting more, and, we're going to do our best to provide that for them with, future conferences.
So if someone wants to kind of get on a list, stay in touch to figure out when y'all do know a schedule, what's the best way to do that? So they email you?
No, they can just go to themedicalevent.com.
Okay.
That's where we have our information. They could download the past program if they were looking to learn more about that. There's also a place where they can join our mailing list directly on that website. So once they're on that list, any future offerings we'll be able to do. Additionally, we have a LinkedIn group as well. You can look it up on LinkedIn. It's EXL Pharma's medical practice marketing group.
Okay.
But based off of the expansion and growth of Concierge, we'll probably be tweaking that name a little bit and putting Concierge in there. And that LinkedIn group is, for the past year, it served as a nice resource for people after the event to stay in touch, to post some discussions and ideas up there and get comments from folks. So I would definitely encourage people to join that group.
Cool. We'll put links up to all that on the site. So if you go to conciergemedicineradio.com, we'll have links to Bryon and EXL Pharma and information on the next event when he comes out with it. Thanks for joining us, Bryon, and everyone else. We will talk to you next week.
Thank you.
Hey guys, this is your host, Taylor Pearson. To give you a little background on the show, after seeing my dad and sister, both physicians, struggle to find a good resource for how to transition from their traditional practices, I launched Concierge Medicine Radio to create a resource to help physicians and healthcare professionals launch, run, and grow patient-centered direct pay or concierge practices. If you enjoy the show and want to help us spread the word to other physicians and healthcare professionals, it really helps us out if you'll leave a review on iTunes. I know the iTunes interface is a little clunky to say the least, so we put together a quick guide on how you can leave us a review at conciergemedicineradio.com/review, or you can go to conciergemedicineradio.com and click spread the word.
Thanks for joining us today at Concierge Medicine Radio. If you found today's show valuable, we'd love it if you spread the word by leaving us a review on iTunes or sharing it with your friends. To see notes on today's show, please visit us at conciergemedicineradio.com. While you're there, leave us your email to hear about all upcoming episodes.